This gospel reading, which comes from the 10th chapter in the book of Mark, has many very powerful teachings. So let me just take this for a few moments and try to shape it into something that has meaning to us every day in the manner in which we live. It speaks about the ambition of James and John, the sons of Zebedee. They come to Jesus and they say, "We have something to ask." And he asks, "What do you wish?" And they say, "One at your right and the other at your left." It appears only one other place, and that's in Matthew chapter 20. But in Matthew is more kind. Matthew has the mother of James and John asking Jesus for her two sons to be one at his right and one at... And actually, James and John are not mentioned in Matthew's gospel. It says the mother of the sons of Zebedee comes to Jesus and asks that one of her sons will be on his right and the other on his left. So it appears there, and it's a commentary on the ambition of James and John, but also on the ambition of the others. They become indignant when they see that James and John got the drop on them. And they got in there first. So they were all governed by this sense of ambition and power and glory. They loved the Jesus of miracles, while the Jesus of suffering, they didn't want to know. So let me look at this and what this means to us when we begin to reflect on it. Where it appears in these two sections of John's Gospel, but in Mark especially, it's part of a journey. I spoke about this the last few weeks. It will come up again next Sunday. And it's a section in the book of Mark, beginning in the end of chapter 8, and it goes through chapter 9 and chapter 10, and will tell us about various teachings that Jesus had on his way from Galilee, going south down the Jericho Valley, up to Jerusalem. And various things happen, and various teachings occur, and each of them has a special meaning because it's the journey to Jerusalem. Jerusalem being the place of destiny, the place of truth, the place of meaning in life. Jerusalem, the place of betrayal, the place of denial and the break in friendship, is the place of abandonment. It's the place of unjust judgment, of rumor and unjust judgment on Jesus. It's the place of loneliness, aloneness. When Jesus goes through his trauma, he's alone. It's a place of aloneness. It's the place of suffering. But following Jesus, it's a self-donation. It's not suffering that's imposed on him. It's suffering that he chooses for a blessing for others. It's a place of dying, the great symbol of dying to something, and then the symbol of rising to new life. The rising to new life to find meaning in your life. Now, this is otherworldly. It doesn't submit itself to the hobbies and distractions of the world, which will offer us a very limited, temporary consolation. We'll get satisfaction, but then it's here today, it's gone tomorrow. In order to understand the deep, deep meaning of life, we have to go to Jerusalem. There is real life. That's real life for every one of us. We go through these human experiences, and Jesus is teaching them on the way to the place of destiny. Now, what's interesting about Mark here is that Jesus 3 times predicts his passion. 3 times in Mark's gospel. The Son of Man will be handed over, he will suffer, and he will die, and he will rise again. Over and over again, Jesus says that to his followers, to these disciples. But they don't hear it. I think they're afraid to hear it. If they hear this suffering Messiah who will die, it will shatter their dreams. It will destroy their ambitions. And so they don't hear, even though very deliberately on 3 occasions Jesus says, listen to me, I'm teaching you on the way to Jerusalem what life is all about. And they don't want to hear that. They only want success, ambition. They want to walk with a powerful Messiah. They like Jesus of miracles. They love the powerful Jesus. But the suffering Jesus, they don't want the suffering Jesus. That happens. Happens to every one of us. We like a powerful church. We like a church that's glorious, a church that's powerful, a church that witnesses only the best. When we get a human church over here that's broken and sinful and struggling and confused, that's a struggle for us. But that's Jerusalem. I wondered when I was reading this, there are many, many lessons can be taken, but the one I choose to lift out of this was the commentary on friendship. What kind of friendship do you think these disciples had with Jesus? Now, we have lots of friends. We have business friends. And the business friends are important because they keep the business going, and they're very important, and they're genuine friends, and they're worthwhile. And then we have social friends. The folks that kind of live and they belong to the club, or they belong to the organization, or you volunteer together, or you live in the same neighborhood. They're social friends. Then you have casual friends. People you meet occasionally. They're nice, and we're all nice, and everybody's nice, especially this time of the year, coming up to Thanksgiving and Christmas. Everybody is loving. We're all just beautiful. It's just wonderful. It's a great time of the year. And we have these casual friends that will bring a basket or give us a gift. We'll get the Christmas cards, we'll get the greetings. They're casual friends. Not all of them, but many are. Then we have acquaintances. We call them friends, but they're really acquaintances. They're people we just know. And all these people are in Jerusalem. They're all part of life. So what kind of friendship is revealed in Jerusalem? What does true friendship really mean? Will you cry with me when I cry? Will you share my tears? Will you listen to me when I'm in crisis? Will you understand me when I'm confused? Will you set me free when I fail? Will you withhold your judgment and give me a blessing even when I don't please you? Will you stand with me in my time of failure and testing? Will you be there? Will you forgive me when I sin? Will you forgive me when I sin? Will you admire me when I'm human? I still admire you. You're human. You're limited. You make mistakes, but I admire you. When others reject me, will you stand with me? When I disappoint you, will you love me? Is there self-donation? Is there gift here, or is there just what I can get? Clearly, these disciples are not true friends of Jesus until the Holy Spirit comes upon them. And only when the Holy Spirit comes upon them, they're filled with the Spirit, will they understand that the true meaning of life is to be discovered in Jerusalem. In all of these economies of life, all the human experiences, that somehow they're woven together in a salvific tapestry that makes us understand the true meaning of friendship and the true meaning of life. So how will you know what's for real unless you go to Jerusalem? If you're afraid and you distract yourself and you deny the existence of this real life in Jerusalem, if you do that, it's unreal. It's a mask. It's something superficial. So when you begin to speak about generosity, commitment, integrity in the church, in a family, in relationships, in communities who call themselves disciples of Jesus Christ, what does it mean? Is it true? Is it reliable? We have a very important synod going on over there in Rome. The more I see of Pope Francis, you might agree or you might not agree with him, but the more I see, I think he understands me. I think he can relate to my humanity. Others will hold up big standards and I will feel totally and absolutely inadequate. But with this Pope, I think he has this sense of compassion. I think he's been to Jerusalem and he calls me to come to Jerusalem with him. So whatever the synod is talking about over there, I pray that they will be led by the experience of Jerusalem, compassion, self-donation, not having to be right all the time, not having to have an answer to everything. Everything isn't black and white. We're led to a place of imperfect human condition. And my friends, when you speak about true friendship, think about your Jerusalem or somebody else near you, their Jerusalem. And consider whether the fact to the one who is true in the image of Christ, the faithful Christ, the generous Christ, the suffering Christ, the gifting Christ, the forgiving Christ. And I am a disciple? Am I a true disciple? Is this me? Is it some other person in my life? What's for real? That's the teaching. That's the teaching of James and John and the other disciples. They're takers until they go through Jerusalem and until the Holy Spirit comes upon them. Then they become gifting, sharing, sacrificing, self-donating disciples. Short of that, we are not talking about disciples of Jesus Christ. So when we look at this, am I looking at myself? Am I looking at someone else in my life? Who is the true disciple in Jerusalem?